Alrighty. Hello, America, or anybody in the entire world, frankly. This is not television. This is a universal thing, YouTube. I don't know if there's divisions like YouTube Europe, YouTube South America. Either way, welcome to the Cinema Night Podcast. We are based in the United States, but we love all people from all over the world. And today we're going to focus on Hurly Burly. Does it hold up or not? 1998 film. Going back in time with yours truly, Travis Roy, Eric Branstrom. It's going to be a doozy. Travis, are you excited for this Hurly Burly breakdown?
I'm really glad that you chose this. This is a movie that I think is, it's ideal for our podcast. At one point, it was in my pores. I lived this movie. Not in that, I wasn't like a character in this movie. I just watched it a lot. Thank God I didn't, I don't think I stooped quite that low in my life. I don't know.
You're lucky. We'll see. Person.
But yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah. I'm glad too. It's good to be back. I know life got the best of me last week, but I'm back and better than ever. So it's all good now. Yeah, thank you.
I don't know the goddamn code.
Even if you don't know the code, it's okay. Don't worry. We'll talk about that movie in the middle of the show as we always do, or a little bit later. CinemaNightPod at protonmail.com. Send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. And of course, 5-star reviews are always welcome. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, all that jazz and more. Eric, you guys broke down 8 Mile last week. We had special guest host. Thanks again to Luke Horlbeck for stepping in for me.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Big help.
Did you get all of his notes on class and reform and all that jazz?
Always a pleasure to have the great Luke Horlbeck on. He's always welcome. And again, if you liked his episode, make sure you check out Is It Safe podcast, where he and Mike Govier, along with the other gentleman, Scott.
John Scott. He has 2 names, apparently.
They break down general goings on in pop culture, the news, sports, everything. So if you like kind of a potpourri type podcast with insight and laughs, check out Is It Safe with Luke. But that was a lot of fun last week.
And Mike Govier.
Who?
Yeah, and Luke loves movies. He's a huge movie guy. So if you're into movies, you want to get Luke's opinions on stuff, it's great. Last night we talked about the Mexican pizza and Taco Bell, so you never know what we'll talk about. And Luke got a new microphone. He sounds amazing. He's taken himself to a new level, so congratulations, Luke. Travis, we all saw The Batman, but we've all agreed that we won't talk about it on the show because, out of respect to everybody else, but we are going to do a little side episode.
That's right. He's the Batman.
He's the Batman.
Most generic score you've ever written.
No.
I
strongly disagree, but let's save it for. We're going to have our first mini episode, our first bonus episode. We'll record it after this podcast, so stick around if you're watching live. I guess we'll be in the same stream. I don't know, but we'll
put it on the YouTube channel,
and we're going to unpack.
We'll upload it.
2022's The Batman. Now that we all 3 of us watched it before technically it got released. Apparently it's supposed to come out Friday tomorrow in our time, but
those days are over.
Yeah, it's like a joke. It's like, well, no,
these big movies, things that there's a screening on Tuesday.
Right. By Friday, I mean Tuesday.
Friday, the Grosvenor, you'll be there.
You'll be there.
You could bring your kids. You can bring the whole family.
I don't want any more kids rolling around their beds at night with their sick fucking hatred of me. I can't stand it.
Unless you have issues with your children.
I hope we have lots of jazz quotes coming, lots of Phil quotes.
Eric, it did remind me, we saw The Dark Knight Rises together 10 years ago this year. That was a long time ago. That's hard to believe.
We went to the Henry Ford IMAX theater in beautiful Dearborn, Michigan.
Beautiful.
And that was a game changer. I've been to a lot of theaters that pretend like they're IMAX. They call them LIMAX, where they're just like a big screen, but it's not like the actual IMAX experience, which is because at Henry Ford, they position you in front of the screen like you're flying in front of it in a helicopter, and the noise is like earthquakey. But yeah, that was so much fun. It was amazing how much you thought a movie that shitty was actually good just because you're in an IMAX theater.
What I call the gravity effect.
What is that?
The gravity effect. That's where I saw Gravity on one of those on that kind of IMAX where it was like you have to climb a mountain to get to it, and then you sit you can look down at the movie if you want to, or up. The choice is yours.
Then you watch it at home and you're like, what the fuck is this? Epcot Center video on a theme park? What is this shit?
Center. Wow. By the way, so I didn't get to comment. I'll just say real quickly, 8 Mile does not hold up. That is my opinion.
No.
Since I didn't get it on the record. But
now that it is, that's 3 out of 4.
not terrible. It's just, it's a movie that I've thrown on many times that I'll just watch for the fuck of it. Maybe because I'm from here. I don't know. There might be some connection like that, I'm sure. And hey, Michigan's sort of Detroit. But if you start to break it down, there's not a lot going on there. It's pretty drab too. So that's my 2 cents on 8 Mile. All right.
And if you want the other 98 cents, you could listen to our previous episode.
45 cents?
45 cents. Pick them up. Scott for the brother man.
Scott for the brother man. Yeah, there it is. Travis, let's turn it over to you, and you can break down your latest quarantine viewing picks.
Well, I'm going to say right off the bat that The Batman is my number one suggestion for the week, although I did watch some other movies as well. Friend of the show, I guess I could say at this point, right, is Daryl Edge from the podcast, Cage Rage podcast. He had me back on to record. I watched the movie 211 from 2018, which is, I think it might be the lowest rated or among the lowest rated on IMDb for Nick Cage movies. He literally was scraping the very bottom of the barrel of like, who is so obsessed with Nick Cage that they will watch this movie and talk about it with me. And of course the answer is me, Travis Roy. I love Nick Cage that much. And I didn't hate the movie. I have to admit, it wasn't as bad as the dude's follow-up, Disturbing the Peace with Guy Pearce, but I wouldn't recommend it. So keep an eye out for that on the Cage Rage podcast. And while I'm talking about being another podcast, I've been asked a couple times, so I might as well put it on the record for this show because we plugged it a few times, quite a few episodes back, but there was a podcast that Mike was on and that I recorded an episode for that never actually aired called What This Song Means to Me. And a few people have been like, hey, where can I find that? That sounds great. And then it turns out it's been taken down. So you're not going to find that, I'm afraid. But and regular listeners, if you were wondering why you couldn't find it, that's the answer there. Yeah, checked in on Spencer.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I love Spencer.
Loved it.
I loved it. What's this guy? Pablo Lorraine? What's his name?
Yeah, you didn't see Jackie?
I haven't seen any of his stuff. I didn't watch Jackie. I don't know why. I hadn't gotten around to it.
So good.
I really like.
Yeah, I didn't watch that one either, Travis. For some reason, I wasn't.
Jackie.
I think I'd dive into that type of movie, but I didn't end up watching it. Yeah.
I know. Same here. It seemed like Natalie Portman. I don't know why I didn't watch it, but I will now. I love like looking at Terrence Malick's imprint on other filmmakers because he's so heavy-handed. But when you see filmmakers that really love his work and you can see his influence on their work, they kind of do what he does a little bit better sometimes, or at least with more restraint. And I mean, people have gone on, and rightfully so, about the performance of Kristen Stewart in this movie. And I have not yet seen Eyes of Tammy Faye, but I've seen pretty much everything else. But I am pulling for Kristen Stewart at this point. I thought she was incredible in this. But my big takeaway from this movie was Johnny Greenwood's score. He was nominated for Power of the Dog, which kind of felt a bit like a retread to me of what he had done with There Will Be Blood. But what he does with mixing like freestyle jazz and like this Baroque kind of music, I've never seen music in a film, I think, so well represent what's going on screen, where it's like so confining and tight and class, and but at the same time there's like this tension underneath. I just love Johnny Greenwood's score for this. Like I'll stop there because I'll probably just keep rambling, but I really was impressed by that movie. And then other than Hurly Burly, you know what? I checked out the French Dispatch. It turns out, I guess that in the last 15 years, there's only been one Wes Anderson movie that I like, and that's the Grand Budapest Hotel. I have not liked anything the man has put out for some time, including this. It just felt, part of me is like, dude, just go ahead and make animated films. It's fine. Go ahead. It's fine. You make good ones. Clearly that's what you want to be doing. Just go ahead and do it. And I can appreciate the artistry of what he's doing, but I find it's so stylistic that I just get, it's so, I mean, I'm not going to get pulled into a story if I'm constantly reminded that I'm watching a film. I just can't, I have a hard time doing that. So
constantly reminded. You
know what I mean? Like you're never allowed to just enjoy the story. You're constantly being dazzled with, this symmetric, stylized, perfectly color paletted thing, and it's like, I don't know, bring me some raw edges, dude. don't give me 100%. Back it off a little bit. I don't know. I mean, give me some rawness. That's where I'm coming from. So didn't love it. I can see why it hasn't been that much loved. And then of course I watched the Batman.
I've enjoyed it. I've watched it 3 times, by the way.
Oh, the French Dispatch. Well, I'm glad that some people are loving it. I'm glad to hear it. Just man, if I have to see Tilda Swinton do the whole tooth thing one more time with the accent, and no, thank you. No, thank you. Enough with the teeth.
My peeps is on the floor.
Oh dear. Oh, Russell Withers checking in, our old pal Russell.
Yeah,
Hurly Burly,
Russell.
blah, 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 snort. That about sums it up, Russ.
Ra-da-da-da.
Hey,
That's
categorically, definitively. Eric, what have you been watching? What would you like to share with the audience this week?
I was inspired by you, Mike, when you brought up the very, deft choice of Men at Work. So I decided to check it out. That's been about 30 years, and I was laughing my ass off, man. This is classic 80s comedy. It literally starts with drums of toxic waste, as any comedy from the 80s or any movie from the 80s has to. So much toxic waste in the 80s. It was so ridiculous. So many drums of toxic waste, but hilarious.
Yeah, they had to make a Toxic Avenger. There was so much. They made a movie out of it.
So much toxic waste.
Oh, I love that movie.
And then
Several movies.
I started watching, and I really wanted to turn it off because I thought it was so dumb. But something in the back of my head kept telling me that this was one of your favorite movies, Travis. So I was like, all right, I'll keep watching it. High Spirits.
I fucking love High Spirits.
This has to be one of the dumbest movies I've ever read. How did this get made? What is this? How is this a movie?
I guess if you didn't grow up watching it over and over again since you were 9, it might not really be one. There's a reason why I never recommended it. I may have said I loved it, but I never said, hey, check out this movie. It's got Steve Guttenberg and it's from the 80s. I don't know where your expectations were, but you should have adjusted them.
They were pretty high when the first credit on the screen was a Neil Jordan film. I was in disbelief
with Liam Neeson and this score. I love this. Speaking of scores, that's one of my favorite scores. That's a great Halloween score right there. I don't know, man. I think it's a great movie, but I wouldn't say it's a great movie.
Okay.
Ooh.
I watched The Curve. I remember seeing the cover box. I think I used to shelve it back in the late 90s at Blockbuster. The Curve with Matthew Lillard. I gave it a chance because I'm like, all right, man, late 90s, the whole Kevin Williamson Scream. I know he did last summer, Urban Legends. What were the other ones? Killing Mrs. Tingle. What was that one with Elijah Wood, the Rodriguez, The Faculty? And I'm like, this is the one I didn't see, The Curve. Let's check it out. Oh my God, it was so bad. It was so bad. It made no sense. It was just complete drivel, off the wall, improv central. Nothing even happens for the first half hour. So dumb. Never watched The Curve on Tubi. But then I checked out He Said, She Said. I've been seeing this cover box all my life. I've never seen it.
I tried to find that one. I couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah, man. I hit play on Amazon Prime, and I was really happy. I was really delighted, and I enjoyed myself. I thought it was sweet and funny and interesting. Nathan Lane, Kevin Bacon, Elizabeth Perkins. I had a good time.
Yeah, it's underrated. I think it was one that Hughes actually really highly regarded himself, but people didn't. It didn't do as well as he would have liked. As I understand it.
Okay. Yeah. Other than that, as we'll get into in the mini episode, going back to a theater for the first time in 2 years was just, it was really something, man.
Was that your first time?
Yeah. I haven't been since Rise of Skywalker, December 2019.
Me too.
Really? For both of you? All right. Welcome back.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't realize
I blew it on Licorice Pizza. I should have been Licorice Pizza.
Dude. And again, everything came back. It's such a noisy crowd. And the whole, everyone was making noise. This woman was chewing ice next to me. And if you know me, that's the one thing you never want to do around me under any circumstances. Chewing ice the entire time. And I was just wishing I was at home.
You're going to lose us our audience base.
So, yeah. But yeah, it was good to be back, and it was fun. Some of the big moments, like when the crowd starts to have fun and this collective thing happened, I was feeling the magic. That ice just reminded me that being at home is you can't beat it. Yeah,
I got really lucky this time. For once, I had a full theater that wasn't full of assholes. I didn't see one phone come out.
Wow, that's impressive. And you guys both saw that, just for the record, on Wednesday.
Yes.
Yesterday,
Wednesday.
We're recording on Thursdays, which we always do live on Thursdays, by the way.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Eric. Good stuff, my friend. Sorry there was ice chips. That happens. I had not been to the theater in 2 years myself, too. So that dawned upon me now. And there's an MJR right down the street. Like, it's literally 1.3 miles. I've never lived that close to a big theater like that I can recall. I mean, we lived in Manayunk. I guess that theater was pretty close too. So
yeah, that was less than a mile away.
Yeah, that was actually. You're right. So I take that back. So I never went outside though. Anyways, this one I haven't gone to this one either. So if I finally went to it and I got to hear that it's more fun MJR.
Yeah. Well, that's better than Nicole Kidman.
Some of the movies in that
coming on to AMC and like telling you how you should feel.
Did you get the cast of the Batman, like all smiles, like
that was
being like,
awkward.
get ready
I
fun.
did.
I was like, are you fucking
what the fuck was
me?
that?
Jeffrey Wright looked like he looked like he'd rather shit his pants than be doing what he was doing. He looked so unhappy with what he was doing.
Oh, God damn that.
Yeah, that was something. But yeah, being back in the theater, I caught the matinee today and it was only $6. So I was like, wow. I was stunned with the price.
Wow.
So that was cool. And there were people there and there was food there. I didn't get any food either, which is unheard of, but I was proud of myself that I just kept it simple. $6, see a movie.
Yeah.
But other than that, I've just been pounding Curb Your Enthusiasm right now, hardcore. And once you get into a show like that with so much content, there's really no room for any of the movies at this time. So
I'm rewatching Seinfeld right now. It's funny you'd say that.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
It's always good to step in on that. We've all rewatched Seinfeld in our lives at least once or twice.
Yeah, over Thanksgiving,
But
I went
Curb-
back.
Nice.
Oh, of course you did. Luke would love that. I wish Luke was here right now. He would love to talk about. Luke said on yesterday's Is It Safe show, by the way, that we talked about Larry David, and he said, "Yeah, Larry David's a void. He voted for Pete Buttigieg." So now he's no longer a fan of Larry David now.
So he's gonna dislike everybody that voted for Pete Buttigieg.
Well, he still loves Seinfeld, the show, but as far as Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David as human beings, I don't think he's a fan of theirs. So.
I'm not going to tell him who I voted for. I didn't vote for Buttigieg, for the record.
Well, that's good. There you go. I will say this. I wanted to catch up on the last 3 seasons. I hadn't seen Curb, so I got to see a couple fresh seasons to me, which was very enjoyable, especially with modern times going down. And then I just had to start over. That's how they got me. You know what? I'm just going to... Because every time I hit play on an episode, I'm going to laugh. It's just a funny... And it reminded me way back, 2004 in Cincinnati, when we lived at Laskowski's house. Me and Guile... What a wild time that ever happened. Me and Guile and Keith and Laskowski lived in that house together. And it was the first time I'd ever seen On Demand. Laskowski always has he just has everything. It feels like he's going to have the bells and whistles for some reason. And he had the bells and whistles of cable on demand at that time. To me, that was like a radical thing in 2004. And we watched Curb Your Enthusiasm episodes on demand. It was like the coolest thing ever. And that was season 3 that year in real time.
Oh, wow.
With probably my personal favorite episode, Chet's shirt.
Yeah, that is a good one.
With Ted Danson and Larry fighting over a shirt. Very good. So
that's a good one.
That reminded me of Cincinnati. And I'm like, man, Cincinnati really happened.
Rat.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was. I'm a Jew. I guess it was Jew pissed rat face was what I used to call him that. So I'm Jewish. I don't know if
since you're Jewish, does that mean that since you're Jewish, does that mean that you have hard data on this karma shit?
Oh man.
Hurly Burly,
I'm gonna stop. Yeah. Oh,
hard data. Hard data on karma because you're Jewish.
Hard data on mysticism. Interesting. Very interesting. I also was speaking of being at the movies, I was disappointed because I saw some trailers I didn't want to see, and I didn't know how to hide from it. It's really hard to hide from a giant screen in front of you because they showed a Doctor Strange trailer that I didn't want to see.
That sucks. Dude, I mean,
Yeah.
I literally have stuck my fingers in my ears and hummed to try and avoid that shit. I went and watched
Wow.
a Batman trailer this afternoon now that I'd seen the movie, and I was like, man, I'm fucking glad I didn't watch that before I watched the movie. There was so much in it that I thought would have really spoiled some big things. Trailers are the worst,
Yes.
man.
And I already know how you feel about trailers, and I
know, I'm
generally
sorry.
agree with that. I always have. There might be a time where I'm sitting at home and a new trailer comes out for. I actually watch trailers for movies that I'm less into, more likely. 'Cause
yeah,
just,
same.
I don't care as much, so there's less for me to risk.
That's the only
Like
time
Jurassic
I'm watching
Park.
it. Yeah. I'm not
Like, I
watching
don't
it.
care.
The less interested I am, the way more likely. I mean, Morbius preview, bring it on. I don't give a fuck.
All right. Well, there's what we've been watching. A little lighter for us this week, and that's okay. Good. Don't forget, Cinema9Pod at protonmail.com. We do have our 100th episode coming up next week, and we're having on the dudes from Podcasting After Dark.
Yeah, Corey
Pretty
and
exciting.
Zach from Podcasting After Dark are going to be. What is it? Next episode? Is that our next episode?
Here's our next episode.
Wow.
Wow, that's happening.
The big 100. It's finally coming, and then it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us sharing a microphone.
Yeah, I know you guys were thrilled about that. This is exciting. We're really excited. 100th episode. We're going to do 100 more for sure, as long as we're all alive. Hell, even if one of us dies, I'm gonna put this on the record now. If I die, I want you guys to carry on. I'm saying that now, live.
Same. Don't let it disrupt. I would want you guys to carry on. Same.
Show dies with me. I've already got paperwork that I sent to my attorney in the safe deposit box. It says cinema9.podcast. It's done.
Yep, there it is. Okay, then. Yeah, that's the game. That's the game.
That's the game. That's the fucking game.
Yeah, that's the fucking game. As far as emails, I don't think we've had one recently, but we do welcome your guys' banter. Some of you guys are very clever with your words, and if you have something to say, by all means, hit us up, Cinema9Pod at protonmail.com. And the 5-star reviews, the YouTube channel continues to grow. Thank you to everybody there. Really good stuff there. Eric's done great work. We're almost up to 200 subs. It's pretty wild. We were stuck on like 40 or like 20 forever, and it shows a little backbone here, thanks to Eric again, and we're growing. So it's good to be a part of that. We thank you guys for taking the time to hit us up and connect with us. It's good times. Having said that, let's do it. Let's get into the main event. It's time for Does It Hold Up or Not? This week's edition takes us back to 1998, and in the spirit of Ravenous, I chose Hurly Burly because this, which for some reason I just hadn't mentioned it enough, and nobody really had, but we talked about this before. We lived in Ypsilanti 20 years ago this year, and it was Hurly Burly, Rounders, Ravenous, and Deconstructing Harry, the big four, as we've talked about before. And this is one that I thought about doing for a while, but I didn't know if it would be worth it or not. But I'm glad that we did this because there's a lot to unpack here. So, Travis, do you remember when you first saw this film, though? It's a 1998 film. Did you see it back then? Or you were at Blockbuster at the time, so I'm sure you probably caught it when it came out on VHS.
This is one, so it's going to be, we're going to have to talk about Kevin Creepy Hand Spacey.
Let's do that now. Yeah.
Well, we've done it before because we did Usual Suspects. This isn't the first time we've had him on the show, but yeah, we are going to have to talk about him. But I was a big fan of him, as were a lot of us. And I was a big, and so the movie came out and I went to Ann Arbor to catch it at Michigan Theater to see it in theaters and the special art theater, because I'm like, this looks fucking awesome, and I loved it. But yeah, we could pause and talk about Kevin for a little. We need to talk about Kevin, right?
We need to talk about Kevin. Yeah, I thought that was one of the reasons I'm like, there's other movies we could do, but in the end, what happened in our lives happens in our lives, and I don't like to shy away from that. First off, there's other people in this film, and there's a whole production crew, and this film was really well done in its time in terms of what people gave to it. I don't think that should be dismissed because some guy was an asshole, a total prick, a scumbag, a borderline felon. I don't know if he's ever been proven guilty, and he hasn't been convicted. Anyways, we know what Kevin Spacey was huge to us. Travis is right. Swimming with Sharks was like the biggest thing for 1 year there in the mid to late 90s for us. We watched that movie a billion times. It was all because of Kevin Spacey's performance.
Yeah. Again, we did cover this on the Usual Suspects episode. You can go back if you want a bit more of a nuanced look at it. My thinking at this point is that I agree. There's not one person that ever makes a movie, even if you're talking about a writer, director, star. There's still a whole entire crew and other actors and all kinds of people who, put their blood, sweat, and tears into this thing, and to just pretend it no longer exists because one person turned out to be a piece of shit. That's a mistake, I think. And as a historian, I got news for you. There's a ton of people that we venerate still who did at least one thing that you could look at and be like, well, that's objectively shitty. I'm not saying we should celebrate Kevin Spacey by any means, but to try and just erase his work from our, the public memory or something would be foolish. There's, and we don't have to like sit there and talk about how great he is or how great his performance is, but the man, he was in a lot of good movies for a reason. He probably still is a talented actor, whatever he is. So there you go. That's my thought.
No, I think that thought says it all. And just like you, like back in the day, like anytime Kevin Spacey was in anything, we were going to be there. He kind of popped out of nowhere. Like we remember him from like The Ref and like some early stuff, but then like it exploded. We could not get enough. I saw this at the Star Southfield. Really, like I had to drive forever to find this because no one was playing it. It was so art house. Mm-hmm. This might come as a surprise to both of you, but I hated it. I hated the movie. I haven't seen it since. I might be the only one out of the group that never liked this film.
So that's Sexy Beast and this one that we the rest of us walked around quoting in your face over and over again. You're like, yeah, okay, again with this fucking movie.
Come around here, you kiss your ass, whatever, guys.
Yeah, what are they saying? Yeah, is that where you got that from? Great.
Yeah, again with this.
Interesting, Eric. Okay. Star Southfield again, popping its head. A classic theater once upon a time around here in the Detroit area. For me, I definitely saw it at the Dump for the first time when we lived there. Whenever it was shown for the first time is when I saw it, and they all bleed together. So there's no way I could tell you that I recall the first viewing of it. Either way, I definitely was a big fan of it. I thought the dialogue was outstanding. It was very quotable, and I loved quoting movies back then, in particular in my own daily dialogue, so I had to include that.
Yeah.
And it was also filled with a lot of great actors that I respected. Chaz Palminteri and Kevin Spacey, of course. Sean Penn speaks for himself. Robin Wright, Penn at the time, Robin Wright now. Mm-hmm. And Meg Ryan pops in too. And Gary Shandling. I love Gary Shandling, so that was another reason. I think that was one of the bigger reasons for me personally why I was so into the movie, because he wasn't in movies very much, and he was just wrapping up the last season of Larry Sanders on HBO at the time.
Yeah, I think it's really funny that 18-year-old boys were on their own going to go see the movies of Kevin Spacey. Like, we love the fine work of this actor. We must go to these art film houses. That is kind of funny to me. But yeah, I also agree. Gary Shandling, this is my favorite Shandling role and always has been, because now bear in mind, I didn't watch what's the show that
Larry Sanders?
Larry Sanders. Yeah, I never watched that. But
oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know you're a big fan, but I just never got around to it. But I have to say, this is my favorite performance from him. It's a very natural performance. I wish that he'd done more kind of dramatic work. Yeah,
I agree. I completely agree. This was also a stage play, and it was one of those that turns into a movie. So there's not really a lot of settings other than the house and a couple other ones, but the house is a big focus in this film.
Did you guys check out who else played these original roles?
I did. Bill Hurt, I think Chris Walken.
Well, Chris Walken, I think he came in later. Originally, it was Ron Silver that had Mickey's role, and William Hurt that had.
Did he have that beard?
Eddie's role. I don't know. And then Jerry Stiller was Artie, which I find fucking awesome. I would have liked
Jerry Stiller.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen that.
Shit, yeah, I definitely would have loved to have seen that. How about that?
Yeah. Sigourney Weaver is as what's Robin Wright's character's name? I always forget that character's name. Darlene. I want to say Donna, but that's Anna Paquin's character that was played by Cynthia Nixon. So it's a pretty good mix of actors.
Oh, I think somehow this movie was able to get a lot of play around Hollywood circles or reputable actor circles, because I remember hearing a lot about that even in very early ages of the internet, where this movie was big with actors and the stage play, people loved it and they wanted. That's why it was so worthy of turning into a movie, I suppose.
Well, it's worthy because
it got a lot of pub.
Yeah, it's worthy because it's wordy. So I imagine actors are going to fucking love it.
Yes, a lot of words in this film. There's no doubt about it. Let's talk. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that Hurly Burly is a reference to Macbeth, and there's a very Shakespearean kind of vibe going on with the language here. In terms, I don't know, it's not. I don't think there's any sort of iambic pentameter or anything happening that I know of. I'm not really good at identifying that sort of thing, but there is
still state in Maine, huh?
But it's no state in Maine, thank God. But I do think that there's something going on here that there is an intention to have, something that would be meat for actors to chew on. It seems like that's what's sense. What's going on here to me.
That makes sense.
I think the original play is from 1984. And they didn't keep it in the early 1980s. And I mean, like Hollywood, among most things, completely changed from year to year. This area, in fact, Hollywood Hills and the industry and all this. Do you think it was a mistake to set it in present time for 98 as opposed to like the cocaine 80s, like surplus?
I definitely don't. I definitely don't for two reasons. For one, it cocaine would have been more normalized in that time period, and it's more highlights the fact that he's got all these guys have drug problems. They're not just in their environment, for one, and for two, this is how we get the amazing scene where they fight at home, fight in their cars or with their cell phones, which wouldn't exist in the 80s, and then fight in their office, and then fight on the way home, and then on their cell phones again, and then fight when they get home. So that's probably my favorite part of the movie, and that wouldn't exist had they not updated it for the 90s.
They would have been rich. They could have had cell phones in 86. I'm just saying, but it's I don't know. It's a minimal point.
Yeah,
you're right. The setting to me is fine because this is timeless in a way, very much timeless to me, especially this world, this Hollywood people and these producers. And we'll talk more about the sleaziness as being timeless factor momentarily. But anybody got the score on this one? I'm going to say this is a 6.7. That's my guess.
I think that a lot of people that see it's not going to love it, but most that see it probably kind of like it. So I'm going to say 6.9.
Oh.
Let's say 6.3.
Ooh, okay, there we go. I like that. I like that a lot. Oh! 5.8. This is one of the lowest ones we've ever had. How about that?
5.8.
Can't even crack the 6 barrier.
Well, it is very wordy with extremely unlikable characters. I can see where it's not for everyone.
Yeah, it's fucking satire. Yeah, okay, I know what you mean, but it's, I guess it's for people who are willing to it's the type of people who would enjoy this, are the people maybe that have insomnia or are the type of person that they struggle with the inner turmoil of living in this life sometimes.
Oh, shit, that's why I liked it. Damn
it. Rotten Tomatoes wise, the critics gave it a 59, which is technically a splat, just 1% under a decent tomato, and the audience gave it a 65. 65 from the audience. So the audience likes it more than the critics, which is a little surprising, I suppose. I feel like this would be like a critical darling in a way for some reason, just because of the way it's done. And
I mean, I don't know how the play was regarded, but I mean, it's well acted and I think well directed. Mm-hmm. But
yeah, I think the play was nominated for a Pulitzer in drama, so it was really big with a run of revivals. So it was a huge hit.
Well, we are very light on the reviews for this one. There's only 2 pages, which is as minimal as we've ever had.
Yeah.
That's low. That's low. We do have Roger Ebert checking in. He says Ebes, or what is Ebes? Yeah, Ebes. Eddie, the Sean Penn character. I don't know why he has to say that, but that's okay. We could have looked that up. Eddie, the Sean Penn character, is a bruised romantic with a good mind who is as unhappy as a person can be, and in a riveting scene uses cocaine to take him to a place free of raw emotional pain. It is a remarkable performance. 3 out of 4 stars.
one scene. He's also not a romantic, and I forget the other thing he said, but he wasn't that either.
I'm not sure. Yeah, he's a raging either. He's just confused. Like this.
Oh, he's got a bad brain.
Raj.
Bad brain. He's got his brain is bad. Doesn't work good.
It says who is as unhappy as a person can be. I buy that. Yeah.
He said he has a good brain. He doesn't have a good brain. He's not romantic, and he doesn't have a good brain. That's Ebes let me down this time.
Shut you down, Jan. Let's see. Let's try Dennis Schwartz. This guy always pops up. Dennis Schwartz of Dennis Schwartz Movie Reviews.
Yeah, I remember that one.
This glib talk fest is based on David, is it Rabes? Rabe?
Rabe? I don't know.
R-A-B-E-S.
Rabe.
David Rabe's 1984 misanthropic play about friends caught in the web of Hollywood hype. You're not reviewing anything there. You're just telling us. It's like
a synopsis.
Yeah. Plot summary. Thanks, dude. Disappointing. Dennis, we gave you a shot. You screwed us. Let's try. Oh, here we go. James Sanford of the Kalamazoo Gazette. There you go.
Right. Kazoo.
Yeah, jet skis. When the madness is all taking place in one room, as it does in the play, intensity is generated. When it's spread out across a variety of locations, the power of Hurly Burly is quickly diluted. I completely disagree with that.
I think that I mean, I could see where in a stage performance I would want that, it would make sense. But in a film, I think it would become really claustrophobic. And if they never walked out of that room, if it was just all in the living room, I think it would get really pent in, and that doesn't sound good to me.
The intensity is always there to me, so I that's the point I don't get. Either way,
yeah,
if it was on a stage play or the scenes and the way the actors are performing, they ratchet up the intensity. And with Chaz Palminteri's character alone, just having him there in any scene makes the scene more intense.
Is your complaint really that this movie is not intense enough? Really?
Yeah. I mean, what do you want? Like a action?
Play devil's advocate. Like, I could kind of see the moments where they probably said, all right, let's stop and go to a new location. Like, it's kind of the way the scenes start in the film. You can kind of see how, like, they're just coming into the scene and they're like shooting a new part of the script. So
yeah, we were talking about that recently. We were talking about that recently, how sometimes a conversation will like pick up somewhere else in film. Yeah. You're like, well, what were you doing in between? And but we do see some of that with these guys, that they just carry the conversation on in between.
Yeah,
that's true. That's very true. So yeah, otherwise the reviews are pretty bogus. So here's one: Desperately Seeking Mammoth. Hey-o!
Yeah, it's only a matter of time there.
That's great.
So this movie is packed with stars. This to me was unique because Meg Ryan shows up in an unusual role for her at this point in her career. This
and then
to
she
me
stopped. She just stopped working
after that. And she didn't start working again until In the Cut, which is a disaster. But Meg Ryan stepped out here, and by this point we already had the You've Got Mail sequel, follow up to Sleepless in Seattle, and she's the rom-com queen. And in this role, Meg Ryan shows up in the middle of the movie there, early to mid, and is this completely different balloon popping prostitute.
She's not a prostitute. Wild. She's just a she's not. I don't think that she's a prostitute.
I think
she's not doing this for money. I don't get the
right.
I don't get the hint that they're doing this. That she's doing.
Oh,
this
the
for
balloon
money.
thing. I think she's a stripper for sure. I got that clear.
Well, but her stripping involves some sort of like fantastic, some sort of art, like supposedly, which that happens. There is plenty of people that incorporate nudity into their art. And she's not charging for sex. She's just like I think that she expects
no.
Return like that. Favors, right? Like there seems like because I think there's an expectation that that helping Eddie and Mickey, etc., out will be good for her in her career or whatever.
Yes. There's also sex in this movie is bizarre as fuck because when you have the introduction of Anna Paquin's character, Donna, Artie brings her over as a gift. Now this
is like our pet. And
yes.
Keep her and fuck her.
They're talking about her right in front of her when Artie brings her over, just openly. Like they wouldn't even think twice about holding back. Oh, she's right in front of us. Maybe we shouldn't be saying these things. And it's pretty fucked up now when I watch it today. Yeah.
Well, so that brings me to one of my interesting questions that I wanted to pose to you guys, which is because here's my thinking, and I wonder what you think. I think that these characters are deeply misogynistic, but that the movie itself isn't. What do you guys think of that? Does that make sense to you?
I'm in on that. These guys are definitely misogynist, but this is a woman who, as far as I can tell, I mean, Donna's character, she's not forced to do anything that she doesn't want to do.
Yeah,
is that what you're alluding to in that respect?
I was like throwing up in the aisles, like, God damn this women trashing, women hating horse shit, but Yeah, last night I'm watching it and I'm like, well, let's think about this. Like Donna does what she wants. I mean, she is a willing participant here. And even Meg Ryan's character
Until Phil headbutts her. Yeah, that kind of ruins things.
Well, and then she leaves, rightly
yeah.
so.
And
She
and I,
does.
what I like about Meg Ryan's character is she said, "Yeah, I fuck who I want to." So no one's telling her what to do. So all these women are empowered, even though they're around these misogynistic guys. For me, the film is kind of like a male bashing movie, and I think people misinterpret it as a female bashing movie. But this is like this movie pisses on machismo and male prowess more than it does anything to do with negativity.
Yeah,
towards
with
women.
Phil being the centerpiece of that. He's the
Yeah.
guy, like, you don't want to be like this guy.
Friend of the show and co-host with on my show with him, the Best Film Podcast with Chad and Travis. Chad chiming in with, "Hey, why did you guys like this movie so much? It always baffled me. I just wanted every character to please stop talking." I mean, for one, if that's how you feel, then yeah, this movie's not for you. But I think that it's funny. Like it's quotable and funny to me, and I am laughing at these guys. Like that, I'm laughing at these characters, especially
Absurd.
Eddie and Phil. Eddie and Phil are this toxic duo of all time, just the biggest couple of fuck ups maybe I've ever seen depicted on film. And which is funny because like they have like more money than me, and like they have better houses and clothes and cars and stuff than me. And I'm like, oh, but these guys are like that. You can't gauge success by that, can you? Because these people are just rotten to the fucking core. Just the worst.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't think Darlene's all that great really either. She does.
She's not. I was going to mention that with your point earlier.
Yeah, she does exercise agency. I'll give her that. But she's part of the industry. Don't say industry, but she's part of the industry, and so her soul's a little bit rotten too. But Donna and Donna and Bonnie, that is Paquin and Ryan's characters, are the only characters in this movie who really say anything ever of value. Mickey has a couple of gems, a couple of times they're kind of realistic, but it's, in terms of like seeing through people and being true about life and existence, like the Bonnie and Donna are the only ones that really have anything to actually say for all the talking everyone else is doing. Like they're the only ones that come into this movie with any real wisdom.
They seem like the only people that talk and say something. Like all the guys talk, but they're not really saying anything. It reminds me of this quote that I was looking at from this guy, Rob Gonsalves, efilmcritic.com. He calls the script a burden on our patience. And I think that's what Chad's talking about. Like you can look at a film like Glengarry, and Mammoth's going to come up again eventually.
Sure.
But it's riddled with dialogue. All the characters are beyond despicable pricks, but it's so riveting you cannot take your eyes off the screen. What's the difference?
Well, this is navel gazing. I'm sorry. I thought that you were going to answer your own question. Or were you
feel free to piggyback on it, because I think that's the whole point for me. Just this, what they're saying, it doesn't interest me. I feel like I'm the sober guy at a party of people that blacked out an hour ago and they're still arguing with one another. I want out.
I get that. I definitely get that. But yeah, this one is a lot more navel gazing and existential, and not in a good way. Like like these guys are just like self-obsessed, but not in a way that is really getting them anywhere or getting the audience anywhere, which is partly why I could always kind of relate to Eddie in some ways. Unfortunately, I don't like to admit, but I mean, that's it right there. Like he constantly wants to better himself, even though he goes out of his way to be his own worst enemy over and over again. And, you know, there's plenty about him that I can't relate to, just for the record, but the fact that he is kind of like self-obsessed, and because he wants to, he's constantly trying to like, is it okay that I feel this way? How should I feel about this? How should I feel about that? Is this normal? Is this okay? And I think that's, for me, something
he doesn't feel loved.
That's it.
Well,
Let's
you know,
talk about Feelings, the movie. It's just called Feelings.
And it is annoying. It is relentless. It is the kind of thing that makes me be like, well, I should probably not bother people with this bullshit.
Eddie is so demonstrative with the way he says things and tries to sell these points that he's not even sure what he's saying half the time. And you're right. He's trying to get validation from others, and but he is trying to search for this meaning. He's always looking for meaning in everything. And he's the kind of guy that would drive me mad because everything has a meaning, or everything has some relevance to each individual moment. And it's absolutely exhausting. Like when Phil passes on and he goes off like, not tonight. You know, he's like, he's just going to let it all loose tonight, howling at the moon. And when he's talking again to Mickey in that great scene you mentioned earlier, I love that when they start the cell phone conversation, the music picks up. And then as he's talking to Mickey from the balcony, Mickey drives by in his car, and he's like,
lady.
He screams on the phone, "Come on!" It's such a, it's in the it's done in the phone, so you hear him through the phone. But it's so funny to me the way his staccato type speaking and emphatic moments. Eddie's despicable in a lot of ways, but he is really funny to laugh at because he is just so lost in this human drama.
Yeah, and utterly reliant as his good friends, Mickey and Artie try to tell him that he's just like utterly reliant on having someone beneath him. Because Eddie is someone that there's one point in the film where he gets off coke to try and like he's with Darlene and like he's
1 year later.
Yeah, he's actually all abstaining and everything, and he looks healthy. He sounds healthy.
Got a kid.
He's got
a kid shows up.
My favorite part is that every decision I make revolves around my son. Like, what the fuck? Are you kidding yourself? Yes, you are. But still, there's a moment in the movie where like he's doing okay before he falls off the wagon, and I think I'm glad that section's in the movie because Eddie is someone that you do get the feeling that he's kind of on a knife's edge and is throughout most of his life. He's got one foot either way. He could either be a basket case or he could kind of be okay. He's just struggling. Again, I can relate. So and Phil is an anchor like that just is constantly dragging him over the other side of the fence, but like he can't let go of him for any reason, for all kinds of reasons, but mostly because of like selfish reasons. And no matter how bad Phil gets, he won't let go because that way you just have this person lower.
I want to know how they met. That's the only thing there's so many things alluded to in this movie as well. He's got 3 kids in Toledo that hate him. He also mentions he was in prison, which is not a surprise, but it fills in the story. It's a really well done way of writing without getting caught up in like an extra 5 minutes of like, so this happened and let's explain it to you. The writing in this movie allows the audience to just take it in and figure it out for themselves with a lot of the pieces. And I respect that from this writer. It's well done in that way. But Phil is a raw nerve. He's not even evil. He's not evil. He's like the bottom of the barrel of your worst fears come to life in a human form.
Yeah.
Who could he snaps at the grocery guy in the grocery store. It's ridiculous.
He's dangerous and dumb. That's like the worst combination. Like it's very dangerous.
I don't think he's that dumb though. I mean, he's definitely
like
dangerous because he's thoughtful. Like, he does think.
He's unnerved. He's unhinged. But
he's not stupid though, because when he headbutts Donna, as soon as Eddie comes down, he's like, "What's this?" He's like, "I don't know. It's over too fast." That is calculated. He knows exactly what just happened.
Well, yeah,
so he's not a moron. He's a scumbag.
He's a scumbag. He has no control over his impulses. I mean, look at how the movie or how his character is introduced to us. Everyone just walks into Eddie's house throughout this movie. So he walks into Eddie's house and he starts telling him about how what he's telling Eddie is that I was up all night on a coke binge. I got home in the middle of the night and woke my wife up.
Talking jag.
On a talking jag, and she's asking me to go back to sleep. So I punched her in the face. That's literally the story.
I'm not laughing at that.
No, but but like the talking jag, she could let me go. She could sympathize that I'm on a talking jag. Like it's all, but
run my mouth a bit.
Right. It's all projection. There's no accountability. Constantly, it's exhausting. Like this, and Eddie just enables him all through the way. And to me, this is plainly obvious. Like this. It doesn't take a deep thinker to see that this is what's going on. So to me, that's partly why I enjoy the movie, because I'm in no way am I watching this movie and being like, hey, these are a couple of good guys, right? I like these guys. These guys are cool. No, like these are sick men that like need help, and again, aren't evil. They're just so self-absorbed that they hurt others.
They're like emotional abusers, but
Yeah.
worse than that, they're all
Yeah.
users. And I've had people in my past, friends, that have just used me. And when you go down the line, everyone is using the other. Mickey's using Eddie to feel more confident. Granted, he's manipulating him, but he's using him to fuel his own cynicism about the world. And Eddie's using Phil to feel better about his place in the world.
Hollywood,
and
right?
even Phil, man, like Phil is fucking using this baby to
Oh my God.
that he sees as having innocence and all the things that he doesn't have to feel better. That's why he wants it around. It's like, it's really salacious.
Do you think if we kept her and raised her, she'd be a good
Yeah.
person?
Yeah,
Maybe my favorite joke in the movie.
yeah, it's clearly a joke.
Oh,
Can you
that's
imagine
fantastic.
a child raised by the four of them?
As soon as Phil
No way that
brought it
child-
up,
it doesn't
I said,
even make it
that's
to
a fucking
adulthood.
baby. Oh, Jesus Christ!
Like it's like the last thing that should be
Last
entering
thing
this
that
scene.
should be at this party.
Frail human. Yeah.
And I love
Absurd. Totally absurd.
And Eddie, again, self-reflective, like he won't hold her. He's like, I'm dirty. He hasn't been doing anything, but he's not talking about his hands. He's just like, I'm dirty. And Mickey, who is a sensualist and just completely doesn't have no boundaries. He just kind of just grabs a baby, picks it up, like, all right, and hands it directly off to Eddie. And then then Eddie asks if he should.
He takes nothing seriously. He's going to go back to his wife and kids. He's on a goof.
Oh, God, I know
That's
that's
what we
why.
learned.
That's one of the reasons why he's among the worst of them. He's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go off on this. I'm on a lark here. I'm gonna fuck a bunch and do a bunch of coke and hang out and just use Eddie again for his house and
He knows exactly what
enjoy
he's
this
doing.
lifestyle and then go back to my family. Like, oh, let's come back.
What I think about now watching this movie, I think it's almost unavoidable, is I think about the Me Too movement over the last 5 years.
Sure.
And watching this movie now, because it's very obviously Harvey Weinstein's like ground zero for the scumbags who took advantage of their power and their situations. But it was sometimes, in his case, it was very clear. Well, obviously he went to jail and he was convicted. But what you have here is people who have the opportunity to give people careers. And Hollywood is not a typical career place. It's a very unique, weird set of rules that barely exist, rules very loosely. It's a strange place because people are drawn to it for the fame and the money and glamour, all these things that we already know about trying to get into the movies. It's a trope of all tropes in American culture. Hey, I'm going out on a bus and hoping to make it in Hollywood. And what you have here are these guys not directly taking advantage in terms of assaulting anybody or anything like that, but they are using their power to their advantage. And for anybody to think that a guy like Harvey Weinstein or a lot of other guys who still haven't even been outed, frankly, to be blind to the sickness that was going on in the movies for probably 80 years, frankly.
But I mean,
this movie's 24 years old. It was right in front of our faces in a way too. So
that's a good point.
You know what I mean here? You know what I'm saying?
I do. But when you say that there's no, they're not assaulting, you mean there's not sexual assaults in the movie, right? Because
right. I mean, like,
there is like 4 assaults on people off the top of my head.
Yeah. So thank you for clarifying that. That's what I mean to say. They're talking about Me Too and sexualization, using your power to take advantage of people sexually to get what you want from them. Right.
But they do use violence to get what they want in this movie.
They do.
Phil in particular.
That is, that is totally fair. There's no doubt that's the case. But it's just, this is how it really is to me, because it's not said verbatim. Sometimes it is, we're going to have sex. They do say that out loud. But in that world, as far as I can tell, what I've learned about it in my minimal life is that this really is just a toxic environment to the max. And it's not everybody, but it's a lot of them.
And I think that's one of the key points of the film is the toxicity that can bind people together for the worst. I mean, these people don't really, they would all be better without the other in their lives.
Yes.
Like even Artie, who is the best of them probably, but still just can hardly talk about a woman without referring to her as the B word. Like when he grabs Bonnie on her way out, she's like, I'm taking my kid to Disneyland. And he's like, can I come too? I'm like, fuck, dude, just let this woman have a day with her daughter. You got to glom on and go poison her life because you think that she's going to easily give you a blowjob. Like, God, leave her alone.
Hey, let's not forget Artie threw a bitch out of vet too one day. I mean,
what's that? Artie?
Artie, yeah. But that's the thing. I think you hit on an interesting point. Once Phil dies, Eddie becomes a more interesting character because of that loss, and then it opens him up to, granted, their coke-addled existentialist philosophies and musings, but I think they're a little bit more mature. And my favorite part is probably towards the end when it's Donna that probably saves the guy from fucking drowning in his own pool and emboldens him. So there's stuff there that I really like. I mean, it's acerbic in like the Neil LaBute type of way that is just not
I can
for
see
me.
that.
So that's what
That's
I
good
think
comparison.
Good
why
call.
I'm coming at it aggressively, because I cannot stand that type of like acerbic writing and vulgarity when it comes to these characters. But there's stuff there
Friends and
for
neighbors
sure.
in this movie.
Yeah,
There's a lot in common there. That's a
I can see
great
that.
reference. Good
That's a
call.
good comparison.
I chose both of them. I don't know what that says about me.
That you like that you have a stomach for that kind of comedy. That's for sure.
I do.
And referring back to that ending scene with Donna, I love that she's like first showing off her patches, then she's like later, she's like, I didn't go anywhere. Sorry, I want to, but still, like, so, and then she hears that he was at Eddie's, or that Eddie was at Phil's funeral. She's like, oh, that's why you're upset. You were at a funeral. Of course you're upset. Like, no, people aren't sad because they're at a funeral. They're sad because their friend died. Like, but she's a kid. She's ignorant. She doesn't know. So she has like these moments of ignorance here and like childishness, like understandable childishness. But then she also talked, like he's trying to ask her about like the way the universe works and all that stuff. And she's like, it's just, it doesn't care. And as far as I know, it doesn't care. But how you feel doesn't matter. And she's not trying to be mean about it. She's just like, how you feel, like, doesn't have to run your life, doesn't have to guide you. You just kind of live and go with it, and trying to, when you will never know if the flow cares or not, then just do your thing. And that's, again, like, whether you agree with it or not, that's still like a kind of wisdom that Eddie certainly is lacking.
I'm going to be remiss. We're talking about how there's not a lot of actual assault in the film. Donna
I didn't say that.
a
I said
15-year-old homeless teenager.
Oh, she's supposed to be 15?
Completely,
I didn't know she's 15.
It's not stated she's 15. Is it stated that she's 15 in the film?
I know that in the play she's 15,
Okay.
and when you think about Anna Paquin, you can just do the homework on Fly Away Home in the piano, and it's there. And I think they probably didn't have the balls to state it in the film, or else this is suddenly definitely not funny anymore. But this is a kid. You said it yourself.
Yeah. She's definitely I got the feeling that she was like a teenager or early 20s, but I didn't know she was like 15. Obviously.
She was 16 in real life when it came out.
Did she film that? Really?
Says she's born in 82. I didn't know that. So that's a good point, Eric.
I didn't do the math. I don't go around doing the math. Yeah.
So clearly, knowing that now, you're right, Eric. So
Yeah,
I absolutely agree with you there. I want to give credit, though, because we're ripping on Phil as a mongoloid bozo, but Chaz Palminteri is incredible in this role. Even though he's a raw nerve of physical violence, the way he commands every line he says, and he's got the height, too. He's an imposing physical presence, but he uses all of the tools in his toolbox to maximize every laugh that I get out of Phil. And I'm laughing at Phil because he's just so disconnected from the reality that he's living in. It's funny. It is funny. Chaz Palminteri still made me laugh many times in this movie.
But as funny as he is, and I agree, he 100% is, he's also scary. Like, he's scary at the same time that he's funny, and you feel bad for him.
Yes.
On top of that, you also feel kind of bad for the guy.
Scary.
Well said.
You're scary, funny, and like kind of pathetic all at the same time. Like it's the performance of the man's career as far as I'm concerned, and I think it says a lot. I think he's done a lot of good work. But I mean, I agree. What he's doing here, and he has the most Shakespearean dialogue. Relent, I beg you, that kind of stuff. But and again, like, he's an actor, he's an artist, he's a very frustrated artist, and he's trying to funnel that out through this really vicious, like, his tool, his instrument is to beat things and pound things and hurt things, but he's got this art he's trying to shove out too, which, again, like, I think there's a lot going on. I mean, at one point I'm like, are they trying to like do different parts of one personality? Like, if you put all these people together, you'd have a decent human being. Maybe, I don't know.
It's a good question. he probably figured Phil was probably abused as a kid and stuff too. It's just you feel bad for him in that sense too, because you probably wonder, did he ever get a chance? Because that's just the kind of guy that probably learned what he's done, and we'll never know that. I'm imagining the character beyond the film itself. So.
No, I think you're onto something, because I think that like he's clearly older than Eddie, but he seems to be attaching himself to Eddie like Eddie's a father figure and to him. He's constantly coming to him for advice and guidance.
Not just a producer who could get him into parts and stuff too. Yeah, because they have so many exchanges that we get to see as the viewer, where they're talking about their lives, his life.
We're talking about friendship.
These moments, these exchanges. Yeah, I'm talking about friendship here, Eddie. He screams in a grocery store, a very small grocery store.
Yeah, oblivious of everything else going on around him. It's just the here, the now, this conversation.
I kind of envy him in a way. I kind of wish I could be that oblivious.
Yeah, and like I really feel bad for him. And one of the scenes that I really enjoy between him and Eddie, when Eddie is basically calling him unnecessary, and when he refers to him as background. Because he's in the industry, and background extras are there as their props to make the story
getting to the
more
goods
convincing.
Here now, aren't we?
So, and to the point that all these characters are just these borderline, sociopathic sleazebags. Like, you forget a lot in your real life that everyone around you is helping you in the long run, and they're there for a reason, and they can't be discarded, good, bad, as just background people that are there for scenery. And it is heartbreaking. The look in Chaz Palminteri's eyes when he's telling him this is just, it's insane.
So Eddie means it,
right?
But then he answers when he asks him, like, what is it that disgusts you? He says everything, and they just decide that they decide that they're joking. He decides, I guess, that he's joking or something. How could you couldn't possibly be disgusted by everything? I guess is what.
But don't forget, Eddie is what I perceive to be a casting director in this industry. His job is choosing the right people for the job, and casting directors will cast background based on a lot of different things about them, which makes everyone important. So him saying that Phil is completely unimportant is bullshit. And it's just a testament of him trying to bring himself up by putting somebody else down.
And he just suddenly feels like hurting Phil. Like, maybe that's partly what that scene is about too, is that, it really fucking bothers me. He gets told, hey, Phil just hit me, but from Donna, and he just ignores it. Or worse still, Bonnie comes back and is like, he threw me at a moving car. He doesn't skip a beat. He says, I'm sure he slowed down, which is kind of funny. But in reality, he looks her in the face and she goes, you don't care at all. And he's like, no, I don't. And he doesn't. He's
pretty cold, man. Watching this now that's pretty tough to. Donna's crying. She's a young. God, if I'd realized that she was even younger too, it would probably make me feel worse watching that in the moment. But he just. You want to reach through the screen and tell Eddie, what the fuck, man? Come on, you got to show some type of compassion for this younger woman that you're kind of caring for, as opposed to this monster of a human being. It's
instead of standing up for anybody.
It's not his worst moment.
It is. Yeah. Well, and instead of standing up for these women, or even Artie, one of his best friends, instead of standing up for any of these people, he'll just arbitrarily lash out at Phil when he feels like it. And again, because Eddie is an emotionally crippled human being.
But that's why Darlene is a perfect match for him in a way, because they're almost the same person. She doesn't lash out like he does. I admit that freely, but the way she seems to actually, now that I think about it, I think Darlene has a lot more in common with Mickey. There seems to be this laissez-faire connection. They probably would have been a better match, actually, when Mickey says at that restaurant, I've been watching you two, and what I see here is passion. It's a fight, sure, right? But
he just wants out of it.
But Mickey, and everything's a joke to him anyways, especially other people's expense. He doesn't give a fuck. And he and Darlene are these two floating around. Darlene doesn't have maybe the vindictiveness that Mickey's character kind of has, I would say. But Robin Wright does a really good job of playing this aloof without it seeming trite or that she's really trying to be a certain way. She just floats along with the breeze, and she just wanted what, Chinese, or was it French food? I can't remember.
Dude.
It's so funny to me that
She
like
wanted.
this argument scene comes when she's actually like down for eating whatever, and he picks
That's
the
the
big
thing.
bite.
That's
So
the thing.
funny.
Who has not been in a relationship where you've had 2-hour-long argument
Mhm.
and no one even really knows what the fuck you've been arguing about the whole time?
It's just like this airing of grievances. It has nothing to
Right.
do with Chinese or French.
Power play.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Well, we started a little early on this one. We got a few more minutes. Any other points, notes, highlights here we want to get to with this fascinating 1998 film called Hurly Burly?
Well, I'd like to stay on Darlene for a minute because she is a very dynamite lady, and we haven't spent much time talking about her.
Dynamite lady. Maybe she's not as dynamite woman as he thinks she is.
Maybe. No, I actually just wanted to say dynamite lady. I have nothing else to say about her.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Yeah. And so
Eric,
I
do you have
feel
any
like,
other critical notes?
No, not really. Not really.
okay. So we've kind of covered every actor and character here more or less. We haven't talked that much about Mickey, I guess for reasons. We don't want to get into Kevin Spacey that much. Is it a yak hair wig? I don't know. I remember being told that back in the day. I have no idea if that's true or not.
Fair.
But I do think that his character
Goofball?
again, like at the end of the film, when Eddie realizes that this is who he's pretty much left with. Artie's around, but this is going to be my best friend now. And he asks him, "What kind of friendship is this?" He's like, adequate. I love that truth. And one thing I never noticed before in watching this movie is that when they get back from the funeral and Eddie goes into his terror and like is just like doing all, just trying to make sense of all of this and Mickey's actually not the worst friend in the world, because it turns out that he could have had plans that night, didn't make those plans, didn't cancel those plans because he wanted to hang out with Eddie, who he knew was going to be a wreck because his best friend died. But Eddie is going to just turn on Mickey and turn him into like a chew toy or something. I don't know what he's trying to do with Mickey here, but he's going to just emotionally abash him and abuse him because he just is angry and sad. And Mickey just very calmly and wisely just like holds up a hand at one point, picks out his phone and calls the girl up. He's like, "Yeah, you know what? I am free tonight," and leaves. And I love that about him. I love that about that character. That he is. I mean, he's a flawed guy in a lot of ways, clearly, but he is self-protective in a way that is very cool and self-composed that I like.
Absolutely. This isn't the fiery Spacey we've seen in other
No.
movies. This is the reserved, but still, stoic with his role. And he definitely is somebody who's needed in this film, because with all the chaos between Phil and Eddie, Mickey's there to break that up a little bit. Even in the early part of the movie, have some breakfast, eat an orange.
Snowball.
He's actually the reason with all these fucked up people. He's the reason in that house half the time.
Yeah.
Okay. He also kind of gets off on his friend's misfortunes, and I can't tell if it's in a way
Definitely.
that's just to
Mhm.
like build himself up, or if
Oh
it's
yeah.
just what people with no empathy do. Like,
Isn't Eddie his Phil?
yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to be friends with a guy like Mickey because he looks down at you and tells you that you're
No.
you're less than constantly. So
I don't want to be friends with any of these people. It's very clear. Let's make
Yeah.
that very clear. I don't want to hang out with.
I'd
any
hang
of
with
these people.
Bonnie.
I want to see them on a screen so I can laugh at them. But
I'd
yeah,
hang with
Bonnie's
Bonnie.
cool.
Keep your kid at
I
home.
hang out with Donna.
Nobody
She's
said to bring your kid.
cool.
But
This
yeah,
is
I'd
sick.
totally
This is
hang with
really
Bonnie.
sick. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Fucked up. All right. Well, there it is.
I guess,
Hurly Burly.
kind of wrapped up a little early tonight. I thought we'd have more to say about it.
Oh, we
but
started earlier. No, we
Yeah,
started. We usually go to like 30 minutes in on the opening, and we started at 22 minutes.
Yeah, because we all just didn't watch that much of them. We're going to have our
It was a lighter
after-
week for us.
Yeah, and then we'll have our after episode, bonus episode again of the Batman. So stick around for that or check that out as the case
That's
may
right.
be. Anything else that you guys want to say about David Rabe and what was the director's name? We never said it. I forgot to look it
Anthony
up.
something?
Yeah, Anthony's
Guy?
just a couple of
Fella
TV
guy.
things. Yeah,
Anthony
not much
Marza.
of anything.
Anthony Drazan.
Shit.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Anthony Drazan.
I really love
Drazan.
I really love the shot where Eddie is beneath the glass and Artie's doing coke off the glass, and then you've got Mickey in the upper thing. They rack focus between the three.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure that was a lot of setting up for that, and it looked great.
Oh, he did Zebrahead. I didn't know he directed and wrote Zebrahead. That's cool.
Yeah,
that's a good movie. Right. Michael Rappaport, early '90s. That's a good movie.
He did something else. Shoot. Anyways, I can't remember.
Well, one other thing, man, before we wrap is they're doing this, trying to do this thing with the television, which I'm still kind of scratching my head at. I think they're trying to perceive it as like just this box that puts out digestible content, even if it's like decapitations and the murder of children, and they're just looking at it like it's fast food commercials. I don't know if this is like a 80s like consumable thing or what, but it keeps popping in and every now and then. What is this all about here?
I think that's a really good point, and I think you're right that it's a holdover from the 80s. I can almost see the stage with the television on it just flickering, every performance that this has been done, the TV's just on. It probably looks really good on a Broadway or whatever kind of stage. But yeah, the very first thing we see in this film is nature, the power of nature in a storm on screen, like not our screen, on his screen, on Eddie's TV screen. And I think that might mean something. I think it means something that, at one point we learn about this hostage situation that people have died in, and Eddie's very upset about. How am I supposed to feel about that? Well, you shouldn't feel sad, dude. What do you want? But And that I'm glad you brought this up here at the tail end of things, because that brings me to one more point I did want to make and forgot. That there's this one point in the film where Darlene and Eddie are talking about how distracted they are all the time, and I made a note like, "Oh, distracted in 1998 without a cell phone in your hand." Oh, so it's not just now and then. It's like people really always have been distracted by themselves and by the world and by everything else going around, because I don't know about you guys and their egos. I don't know about you guys, but I am constantly distracted. I'm constantly fighting to stay focused myself, but I have ADHD. So there you go. But still, I thought that was so I think the TV factors into all of that. Like this is another source of distraction. Like, is it going to provide beauty? Is it going to provide chaos? It's just on, and it's in your house, this portal to the outside world, bringing you who knows what.
I think it's pointless, just like their lives are pointless, and everything they talk about is just pointless. It's more
idiot box.
Yeah, everything. The TV is no different than what they're doing, and they're entertaining themselves in a way with mindless drivel that just continues to pour out of them, no matter 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That's great. I think you're onto something.
Yeah. Well, I did think of that TV too when the movie first came on. I felt like, oh boy, this is gonna be annoying to somebody. It's like, why do we have this? It looks so bad now too, because it's 24 years old and it's a shitty TV. It looks bad. So,
but it's nice to be reminded every now and then how lucky we are to have flat screen giant TVs at affordable prices that don't weigh 5,000 pounds every time you move them. Yes, all hail the TV.
Oh, thank you, TV.
I am thankful. I am thankful for my TV.
Give me back my TV. All right, there it is. Hurly Burly. Let's do the closing remarks here. I'll go first. I don't think I've gone first in a while.
I think I'll go first. No.
Everybody's I haven't gone first in a while, man. Like,
go ahead, Eric, please.
And I just remember it's been, what did you say, 24 years? And I just fucking remember the movie being extremely exhausting. In fact, man, Hurly Burly I think it's from Macbeth. It basically means noisy confusion. And that's what this is for me, man. It's fucking noisy, and I get confused about all these fucking feelings and emotions that these guys are going through. I look at a cast this big, and it's like, this is like Warren Beatty's like bachelor pad. This is like unbelievable. This cast is insane. This is a legendary. The stories from this set have to be out of control. Thinking, how can a movie with a cast like this, sitting around doing lines of coke and pontificating, be this boring for me, man? I'm sorry, dude. It flirts with a lot of interesting possibilities of commentary on all types of abuse, emotional, physical, sexual, and spiritual. But the problem for me is it just comes off like a pointless collection of inane scenes, each more irritating than the other. The script for me is it's just lacking wit and drive. Like Mamet, I hate to keep bringing it up. It's never good to compare, but it's just not as witty as it is for you guys to me, and I really don't. None of these lines stick with me. I just see a bunch of squabbling and bickering, and I always dislike seeing that in a movie unless it's really written well. So for me, it doesn't hold up, but I can see how people enjoy it.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay, Eric. Hang in there. Very reasonable, by the way. Really not a lot to disagree with on your point. For me, this is a film that has a lot of jokes in it, and you have to be willing to absorb a lot of things at once sometimes to laugh at the jokes. You're laughing at, they're not like jokes told as a jokey style. Like, hey, you know, it's the way they speak, what they are saying, their disconnect from their own reality, the greater societal reality. It's funny to me because it also seems quite authentic. Like these people really exist, even though it seems absurd. But these are people that you will find, not even just in Hollywood. They're in every city somewhere out there. Their lives are so important to them. Their search for their own individual quest to understand or to be players that fuck with other people. All of the characters represented in this movie exist with their own intentions. And within the first 15 minutes, I hadn't watched the movie in quite a few years, but I was like, this is so funny. This movie is hilarious. To me, it just was, I said it out loud. When Paul Materi comes into the house and they start running around, and even when Eddie's in the beginning, he's like, now I'm fucking comatose. Like, it's just funny. It's like, I've done a lot of drugs, I guess, so maybe I can relate to some of that. It's funny. Yeah, I mean, there's some of that to this. We didn't even mention that, but yeah, that's funny. They're very accurate with a lot of the drug stuff in this movie. So when I watch this movie, it's really got a different lens for me now, and I admit that freely, and I'm grateful for that. I see it through the world as a much more mature human being now at 41, and these people are scumbags. And I might not have been harping enough on what kind of scumbags they all were when I watched it 20 years ago. I admit that freely. But I clearly see them for who they are. Yet, I can still laugh at them, but I can also disassociate myself from them and say, I don't want to have anything to do with these types of people. But you're going to act how you're going to act anyways, so I'm going to laugh. And there's some really awful shit that happens to a few characters in this movie. There's no doubt about that, and that's not funny. But in the end, I kind of enjoy this philosophical musings, even if they're not all that concrete of a lot of the characters in this movie. And I'm always going to like movies like that, so I guess that's why it holds up for me. It's because I like to dive into that conversation, and it's funny, and that's enough for me.
I got to tell you, I think that was extremely well put. I think that was extremely well put. And I also agree, you know, Eric, you're the reasons you dislike the film, there's no coming back from that. There's a reason why you haven't changed your opinion over the years. This is just not for you, as it's not going to be for, I guess, a lot of people. For me, again, yeah, I never chose this movie because I always knew I would feel it held up. This is a movie again, it has been a long time since I watched it, and I do feel some differences about these characters now than I used to, but not much. I mean, I think Artie's really the only one I was like, oh, you suck too. I thought that you were the good one, but no, you're not so great. And especially, I mean, I knew the dropping off a girl like a care package wasn't cool, just for the record. So do I have to defend my liking for this movie? I don't know. I don't feel like I have to. I think that it is a intelligent film. I think it is a very witty film to me. You're going to be standing there with a radish for a face. You're going to be standing there talking like a fish. I mean, that to me is some memorable fucking dialogue. And again, like you do maybe have to watch it ad nauseum as Mike has, for maybe some of this language to get under your skin, like the way Bukowski's would, right? You don't necessarily want to be like Bukowski. You don't want to hang out with Bukowski. But when I was in when I was the same age I was when I was watching this movie, I loved me some Charles Bukowski. And I think that there is something, there is something about the misanthropic that you want to kind of revel in maybe at that age. And that you can still find humor in and pathos now. Because to me, this is a movie that I both find entertaining, extremely fast, and I'm left thinking about things, and not the things that Eddie's character wants me to think about, but what David Rabe wants me to think about, or like what I think he wants me to think about anyways. And again, like to watch this movie different times in my life and have different takeaways despite seeing it so many times, because partly I had a bit of like the sneakers thing going on with this movie where I'd seen it so many times that there was, at first I was like, am I going to find anything new here? But I did, and I think that says a lot about the film and why it holds up for me.
Great call on the Bukowski there. Yeah, misanthropic. Great word, and that's what these people are. And I also, when I brought up the drug stuff, like I honestly, when they're all hanging out in that living room the one night after when Meg Ryan's character Bonnie comes over, I'm like, it reminds me of some nights I've had.
Oh, dude, I meant to say that in my does it hold up? Is that that's another thing I can agree with too. I mean, I've done a lot of drugs, and and I could I can relate to this movie in ways that I wish I couldn't in a lot of places, but I can. I've had those late nights standing around having these conversations that you think could change the world if only someone else heard them or something, because you're so self-important, but like it's actually just the cocaine. So.
Yes. Yeah, we should have mentioned that way earlier. I can't believe we didn't get into that sooner. Yeah. Good call. That's well done. All right, well, there it is. Hurly Burly. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Rest in power, Meatloaf. Next week, we got the 100th episode with the Podcasting After Dark, fellas. It's going to be fantastic. We are doing a movie of their choosing. Mm-hmm. And apparently it's called The Annihilators? The Annihilators!
The Annihilators.
Or Annihilators. Did I put a "the" on that?
No, I think it is The Annihilators, right?
The Annihilators.
Yeah. If you're not familiar with Podcasting After Dark, if you've never checked them out, first of all, you should. They have a really fun podcast. And for 2, their thing is obscure films. That's what they do. So they've covered films like Intruder and Monster Squad and stuff that's like maybe not something that everybody you would expect a podcast to do. So in true form, they've chosen a very, very obscure film that I have never heard of in my life. So looking forward to watching that and discussing that with them, and looking forward to discussing The Batman, Matt Reeves' The Batman, with these 2 gentlemen right in a moment.
By the way, so there's a movie called The Annihilators, which is the one we're doing with the Podcast After Dark crew. Again, thanks to them for coming on for our 100th episode. That's very cool of them to do that.
Yeah.
That movie came out in 85, The Annihilators. And then a year later, a movie called Annihilator came out. So I got confused for a second there. Oh. 2 80s movies. Similar titles.
The Annihilators is supposedly on Tubi right now. So if you're wanting to tune in next week, that's how you can watch The Annihilators.
I'll look forward to this. This is definitely something I've never seen before. So we'll do that next week. And never heard of it. Next. And like Travis said, we're going to do our the Batman bonus episode here, a little bonus for you all. We'll post it up to the YouTube channel as soon as we get done with it. There it is. Thanks, everybody.
Valiums by the bed.
Idiosyncratic.